Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Laura Patterson, award-winning author, a marketing strategist, and we'll learn from her about her customer centricity, data, and operational excellence driving lasting success. Welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you for having me, AJ. I'm very happy to be here.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll learn from you about customer-centric growth strategies. In this backdrop, we'll have our conversation. But before that, let's learn a bit about your background, your journey, so that the audience knows who they are listening to.
Oh, wonderful. And we are blessed with a lot of visitors from India regularly, every day to VisionEdgeMarketing.com. So we are grateful for that. Thank you for your interest. So I began my career many decades ago in the financial services industry. And I have to say, that was a pivotal beginning because the gentleman I worked for was all about his customers. And he taught me so many things about what it means to be customer-centric. And my title, which is long before we had any kind of technology, was Customer Relationship Manager. So it's been in my DNA for a very, very long time. Eventually, I made my way from the Midwest to a number of companies. And one of the companies I ended up with was a startup, which I'm sure many of your members can relate to being in startups. It was a application software company that had a product for the durable medical equipment industry that ran on a Wing 2200. So if you know what that is, you're in my generation. And that led also to another opportunity in a startup. At first, about that particular opportunity, my job was find, keep, and grow the value of customers. So again, very much an integral part of my journey to customer centricity and growth. And I helped that company grow. And that led me to a little company some of you may have heard of called Motorola. And I joined one of their new businesses in Austin, Texas. That's how I ended up here in Austin, Texas, 40 plus years ago. It was an itty bitty operation in the microcontroller space, for those of you who might remember that era. And my job there over the next 14 years was also find, keep, and grow the value of customers, with my last 7 years being focused almost entirely on customer marketing. And from there, back into financial services, where I architected a customer loyalty product for the banking industry that led to an enterprise software startup. And then eventually, 25 years ago or so, in 1999, I founded VisionEdge Marketing on the basis that to help companies of all sizes, predominantly though B2B, grow by taking a more customer-centric approach in the way that they looked at the market, to make decisions based on insights from data, to drive their growth through operational excellence, and to have the right measures in place that would help them make better decisions and course correct. So that's what we do.
Absolutely, Laura. And I'll come to the real meaning of this whole customer-centric approach to growth. But first, I want to understand this whole thing about, because you talked about VisionEdge Marketing 1999. And that time also you were using, if I understand, data-driven insights and plus other things, if I understand. And today, if you look at, again, the data, it is in a totally different league altogether. I'm curious to understand, how has this whole data changed? What were the things that you looked at then? What are the things that people can look at today?
That is a great question. And today, I think people are overwhelmed by the sheer volume of data. So in my early career, data was far more limited. And when I sat at Motorola and needed data, I had a box on my desk that had a blinking green light, and I had to put in a query for that in order to, for it to give me answers. And it came to me on a green bar report, right? And if I didn't put in the right query, I had to start all over again. And I might get that report back from the MIS department, a couple of days later. So no real time, lots of, work, very limited amount of data. Look at what we have today. Everything's in real time. The sheer location of data is so pervasive. But I think sometimes people are so overwhelmed by the data that they don't know what they're looking at, and therefore they aren't able to use it and get the insights from it as well as maybe we did with even less data. And so one of the things that I advise our customers who find themselves in that predicament where they are feeling fire hosed by the data is, what is the question you're trying to answer? Start with what it is you need to know, or that you're trying to validate, or you're trying to learn. If you begin with the question in mind, that will help you look at your data from that lens. You have to be careful. You're not looking to get a specific answer. You're not trying to get confirmation bias, the answer to what you think. But it does help you frame how you look at the data so it isn't so overwhelming.
Absolutely. And now let's get to the basic of things. You talk about customer centricity, your roadmap to growth. What does this centricity all about? Does this mean that the companies will focus on the customer? They will take care of the customer? Because that has not happened. We all know as customers, you and me, everyone else across the globe. So I want to understand in that backdrop, is it the same thing or is it a different thing you're talking about?
Well, let's kind of just talk for a moment. First of all, as Peter Drucker said decades ago, many years ago, the purpose of business is to create a customer. So let's keep that in mind as we go through this part of the conversation. And then the other thing that we might want to keep in mind is that we have a lot of different kinds of companies. Some companies sell real tangible products, and others sell services. And you can approach how you're going to grow in various ways. If you're a product-centric company, that is, you believe that you have a solution and you're focused on that solution, what you might be is a company who invests heavily in R&D and believes that if you sell it, people will buy it. It's that old, if we build it, they will come kind of philosophy. That's not a particularly necessarily doesn't mean you're not customer centric, but your whole philosophy is to be thinking about what is ahead of the game. And it's really all about innovation. And I'm thinking about those robots that Elon's making right now, right? I mean, I don't know if we'll ever have one, but think about the innovation of where he is going. And he's, if we build it, they will come. Absolutely, right? And those companies because they spend a lot of money on R&D. Another kind of company that people are probably really familiar with is a sales-centric company, where they put people on the phone or feet on the street and knock on doors, figuratively, maybe even literally in some instances. And the idea being that the salespeople pretty much are running the show. It's all about the pipeline. It's all about making the number. There's a number at the beginning of the month. You're either a hero at the end of the month or, you're not. And that's sort of how they do it. And those people are making promises that maybe the company can't even meet, right? Delivery dates or features on a product that don't yet even exist or may never exist. All different kinds of things that they might do in order to make their number, because it's all about making the number. A kissing cousin, I would say, to the product-centric companies are like market-centric companies. They're very similar in that they're trying to bring things to the market, but they're all about catching a wave. They're coming into the market after something's already got momentum. Whereas those product-centric companies, they're leading, right? They're creating the wave. So you think about what's going on, like with cybersecurity. Remember when it first came into the market, or cloud computing? There were product, now are very market-centric. Lots of companies are drafting the wave. And we're seeing that happening right now with AI, right? For everyone who's watching that space evolve. Look at where we were just a few years ago with generative AI and look at where we are today. So all of the mushrooms that are popping up, that's a sign of them. And those are very market-centric companies. And that takes us to, how is a customer-centric company different? A customer-centric company is putting the customer at the center of the decisions they're going to make and the investments they're going to make and how they're going to run their company. It doesn't really mean they're going to be catering to every customer's whim, but it doesn't mean that it's only focused on customer service. The entire company is doing things around how do we make the customer experience be the differentiator in our company from the others in our grouping, our industry or space. Does that make sense to you, AJ?
Yes, it does. And then the data part comes in. So one was the customer centricity data, and then we'll come to the operational excellence part. So where does data form? Because see, I am looking, you are looking it from a VisionEdge marketing perspective. I am looking at it purely from a customer perspective.
Well,
nowadays,
no, you want to look at it from people who have a company. You have to have data about your customers, about your market, right? If you don't understand your customers and you don't have data about the journey, data about the personas, data about the segments, you can't make customer-centric decisions. So your questions will be very much more about the customer. Like you'll have to know what really is the problems they're trying to solve. I always ask our customers who are working with us, I ask them a few questions. Do you know what success is for your customers? That's a question. Do you have the data that tells you that? Do you know what is the biggest reason or problem that they are trying to solve and why they chose you? Do you know what it is they value in the solutions that you have or the solutions that they need? Those are questions that would take data. Those are questions that are customer-centric in nature. Does that make sense?
Yes. And that is where I want to understand is that data. When customers themselves become data and not the centricity part, that customers are just statistics, and for companies, they will only look at the return on investment. Okay, this customer has bought this, and we want a repeat customer, so let's focus on them. But we don't want a repeat customer, let's forget them. What sort of data are you talking about? You talked about some data about, what does the customer success look like that, like to you. That is something which is not happening generally. That is why you have to ask those questions, and they perhaps will not have, many of these companies will not have perhaps that answer in the right manner, because everything else looks very good on paper, on those presentations within the company. But outside, the companies are falling flat. Customers are refusing to talk to them. And that is why they have come to these robots to call them. And nobody is listening. So that is what I'm trying to understand. What is this centricity and data all about?
Yes, we definitely don't want to talk to robots. I agree with you. So, for example, how hard or easy is it for your customers to do business with you? That might be customer effort data, and you can create a customer effort score. You could be looking and tiering your customers by their value to your organization and be understanding what is the value they bring. And that value might not just be business. The value could be their referral rate. Their value could be in their share of wallet. Their value could be in the ability to help you expand your footprint into an organization. So those are kinds of data that you might look at that isn't necessarily just about their specific purchasing, right? Their value can be that by understanding how you are succeeding with a particular group of customers. So let's say you want to go into a segment X, and you have some customers in segment X. Now you can actually begin to maybe ask questions about and learn more about segment X so that you can now expand your opportunities inside that segment, right? So that you can create a customer advisory board. There's all kinds of different ways that you can now begin to engage with your customers. You can look at you can create a customer vulnerability index to really get a sense of what are behaviors that are signaling to you that a customer is unhappy, so that you can make sure that you can, step up your game and try to nip that in the bud and fix that if they're an important customer to you. So there's all different kinds of data that you can begin to look at. Does that give you some additional thoughts, AJ?
Yes. Let's understand from ground level. What is it that your customers come to you about their customers?
Well, our customers come to us for all different kinds of things. So one of the things that we help them do is get very focused on a customer-centric strategy. So they may need a strategy, and there's all different kinds of strategies. And we might help them figure out what that is and how to best execute it. Sometimes they want to get some information about the customer experience, right? So they may want us to do some research around customer experience. They may want us to help them establish a customer advisory board or help them do some voice of customer work outside of existing customers. They come to us to help them do segmentation and build out segmentation models or predisposition to purchase models, or really understanding what are we doing and how well is it working and what should be the measures that we set up. Those are very common things that people come to us to talk about.
Absolutely. We'll come to your book after this. But first, let's understand about the tools. What are the major tools that one can use? For a general person, small business, all we know is about, Google Analytics and maybe Microsoft Clarity and all those things. But I don't know whether they are useful here or you are talking about different sort of data here.
Well, our data, first of all, your data is going to be in a variety of different places. So you may have some data that's just inside your company's information. I don't know what kind of financial system you might have, but your accounting system has a lot of data about your customers. Customers are what they buy, how much they pay for it, how frequently they do or don't pay their invoices, how frequently they buy. That might be just in your accounting system or your ERP system. If you have an email system, you'll probably have information about email. If you are working in social media, odds are you have social media data about who's engaged, who's not engaged, which content engages them. Imagine you have website types of data. Those are all different ways to get data. That's not certainly an exhaustive list, but for smaller companies, most small companies have at least that kind of information at their disposal. They probably have some kind of sales data, like how many people they've spoken with, how many of those are converting into conversations, how many of those conversations are converting into a real opportunity. So they have that kind of data. So there's all different sources of data that companies have today. Back to that conversation we were having about a blinking green light and that box on my desk. That was the only source of data back then. Oh, sure, we had bingo cards from magazines, and we had 1-800 numbers that we use. We had other sources of data back then. Today, we have converted that to much bigger sources of data like landing pages and things along those lines.
Absolutely. And then we have got this AI, weaved into your system. Is that the latest that we have? Is it difficult for companies to adopt because their private, their customer privacy might be at stake? How should one look at the artificial intelligence in terms of data analytics and understanding our own company's data in using AI? Or should we remove AI and sift through all the data ourselves?
Well, certainly an AI, which has been around a very long time, and its ability to crunch data has been around a very long time, is an excellent tool if you have especially if you have large amounts of data. There's a lot of business intelligence tools also out there. You do want to be careful about where you put your data. You certainly don't want to put your data out in the public domain because then it becomes, information that is available to your competitors and others that you might not want to have access to. But there are ways to have artificial intelligence capabilities that are inside the wall, inside the firewall, so it's protected. And there are platforms that people can buy for that. Depending on how big you are and how much data you're really going to be doing, you might affect what kind of tool you use. Our company is a boutique, and we use a product. This is no skin in the game. I'm just sharing what we use. We use something called Cintra.ai, and we can do a lot with that particular tool, and it's inside our firewall. It's protected. It's not out in the public domain. But even so, I'm always reluctant to put customer information in any tool that that isn't protected. So you always want to be careful about that. But a lot of companies have business intelligence capabilities, and depending again on your size, Excel is still not a bad tool, and it's getting better and better because they're introducing AI functionality, right? Microsoft is introducing AI functionality into those applications in case you don't want to get another platform.
Absolutely. Now let's come to your book, Fast Track Your Business, a customer-centric approach to
I have a
growth.
copy right here.
Wonderful, wonderful. You can show it much more nicely to the audience.
Hello, everyone. This is Fast Track Your Business.
Wonderful, wonderful. So now let's understand, who is this book for? Is it for the smaller businesses, big businesses, or all sorts of businesses?
All sorts of businesses. It has I would say, a little bit more of a B2B slant than a B2C slant, in the sense that, B2B typically, from our point of view, what separates B2B from B2C is that typically the products are more complex. They require a consultative sell, and usually there are multiple people in the buying journey. It's not like going through the grocery store checkout line and seeing a book or a candy bar and making an impulse decision. Usually a B2B purchase is going to have some ripples beyond eating the candy bar by the time you get into the car. And if you didn't like the candy bar, you just don't buy it again. But that's not typically true in the B2B world. Oftentimes, shelfware is very expensive. If you're buying software, and if you're putting in something in your factory, or some other larger item, or something that runs your company, and it doesn't work, that has a lot of implications. So this book is for people that are predominantly more on the B2B front. And it introduces the circle of traction, which is a framework we have been using for over 25 years to help our customers understand the steps to go through in order to create growth. And so it starts with the very first step, which is understanding your customers, right? That's the very first, what we would call node in the wheel. And of course, it does require you to have an axle. An axle is the things that the wheel sits on, and that includes your organizational structure and culture, your data and analytics capabilities, things like that are just must-haves in order for the wheel to turn. So you want to put those in place, and then you can follow the nodes of the wheel, and it will help you think deliberately and intentionally about how you might approach a customer-centric growth strategy.
Absolutely. So what is the future like in terms of data within companies? Is it will be about AI, or where will companies like yours, VisionEdge Marketing, figure in the scheme of things, or will it be a different world altogether, only about artificial intelligence?
Well, I think, what people are trying to figure out is they're trying to go from descriptive analytics to predictive analytics, right? So we need the capability, we need a large data sets to be able to do predictive analytics. And machine learning, artificial intelligence is well suited for crunching that kind of data very, very quickly. I'll come back to where firms like ours sit in that world, but it is the future, right? When you think about all the things that we'll be able to do now that we have the power, and the reason that we're able to do those things is we finally have the computing capability. We finally have data centers that have the computing capability to allow the artificial intelligence to do the data crunching for these large data sets, right? So you have to think about what is changing, being able to work in the cloud and things like that didn't exist, a couple of decades ago. So we have the infrastructure to facilitate the kind of data crunching that could only be done, by a select few, will now be able to be done by many, many companies if they have enough data. So the thing you have to keep in mind is that it's only as good as the data that you have. So data engineering, data cleansing, data management is going to become very critical to every company. Now, that's not what we do. We don't do that work. But understanding what you want to do with your data and how to use your data, those are still going to be firms like ours that do that, help you figure that out. or there's going to have to be people inside your company that can help you figure that out. And, large companies have a force of data scientists, a force of analytical people. But the mid-sized, smaller companies, they don't have large teams like that. They may have a person, maybe, or someone in the business intelligence group, or somebody in the financial analyst group, or some other group that is, doing that work. And it's going to be way too much for just one person. So firms like ours will be able to help them address and answer those kinds of questions by looking at the data and helping them understand what it's telling them.
Wonderful. There's much to learn about all these things from you, Laura, and I'm sure a lot of companies would want to connect with you, learn more about how you do things about, and get the best of help from you, and also from your book. What is the best way for them to do so?
Well, I love if people reach out to me either on LinkedIn, Laura Patterson, or they can email me, laurap@visionedgemarketing.com. Happy to have a chat with anyone. We have all kinds of free resources, lots of free blogs on data, and all kinds of other customer-centric types of free resources. We have worksheets. We have workbooks for those who are the do-it-yourselfers on dashboards and marketing measurement, which is, marketing measurement is probably where a lot of companies struggle the most. They tend to get down in the weeds with activity measures and don't really understand how to select measures that will connect what marketing is really doing to the business. So we have some resources for that as well.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.